We're at the threshold of something new and unknown, and we are becoming a new species. We are awakening, not just in the whole New Age spiritual thing, we're awakening to the unknown, to a potential that isn't written in books. It's a wave of creative thought form realities that are going to move us into something we have yet to imagine. We just have to be ready for that. So it's like, stop holding on to who you've been so you become who you really are. And that's the challenge of this time. You know, that's the challenge of the last 2 years. It's a challenge of our moment of choice, moment of evolution, our moment of waking up collectively. A lot of us, of course, have.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. As always, so wonderful to be with you all, and happy 2022 to you, because it's still reasonably close to the beginning of the year. Look who's in the house. Alan is in the house. Alan Steinfeld, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Such a veteran. We're going to have a great conversation today. And I'm going to read Alan's extensive bio because he's amazing. So bear with me. Alan Steinfeld is a writer, producer, television podcast host, and speaker in the field of human potential, metaphysics, conscious evolution, healing, spiritual awakening, and cosmic intelligence. He has been involved in extraterrestrial disclosure since his experiences as a young child. And I want to talk about that too. Can you remind me after that? I want to know.
Yes, we will. We will talk about that.
We want to know what happened. From that time, he realized that the only way for humanity to accept the fact that we are not alone is to shift our worldview about what we think is possible. In this way, Alan feels we must transcend old limitations out of our mind and tap into what is beyond mainstream psychology, education, religion, and current political ideologies. He feels that disclosure is an inside job. It is only when we awake to who we really are as cosmic galactic beings that the cosmos will come to greet us in our magnificence. To this end, he hosts and produces New Realities and many other programs. You're doing Portal to Ascension and the Wish Alliance. You're doing so much at the moment. You've been prolific on his YouTube channel and website. From this platform, Alan has interviewed many consciousness teachers, such as best-selling authors like Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Ram Dass, John Gray, Caroline, is it Miss or Mice?
Caroline Meese, yes.
Dr. Joe Dispenza and Lynn McTaggart, and many other leaders in the field of health and human potential. He's also spoken with every top researcher in the UFO field and has formed close alliances with people like John Mack, Bud Hopkins, Richard Dolan, and Linda Moulton Howe. Alan has been one of the main hosts and speakers at Contact in the Desert, which is being called the Woodstock of UFO and ET explorations, and sees a growing pulpit movement towards ultimate truth emerging. And of course, his new book out last year, Making Contact, Preparing for New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. Well, I know. You know what, Alan? I've been doing this work for about 30 years and I've been podcasting for about 12 years. And I was watching you on YouTube. How many years ago? When did you start? When did you start on YouTube?
Well, I started right when YouTube began, because I had already had a lot of programs because I was on public access cable TV in New York for about 10 years before YouTube was even a possibility. So I had all this footage actually my girlfriend at the time said, what are you doing with all this stuff? You know, you're just doing interviews and nothing's happening. And I said, well, something will come along. And this whole thing came along, which was the whole YouTube platform. So I was in there in 2006 before Google even bought it, and presenting my shows and what they were calling creators at the time. They were looking for a lot of content. And now it's, of course, an industry, a movement, an institution, really. So I was there. I was there at the beginning, and that was fun. It was fun to be in there and be part of those early creators, you know?
Well, absolutely. Not only part of the early creators, but part of the, you know, the awakening movement. And, you know, I went on media because I was teaching and, you know, teaching psychic courses and teaching deliberate creation and healing and all that stuff. Because when I did a healing course in my 30s, I realized that media hypnotizes us and programs us. And most of the messages are fear. And so I thought, oh God, this has got to change. You know, this has got to change. So I went on radio because I was too vain to go on YouTube because I was too critical of myself. But anyway, I got over that and eventually got on YouTube. But, you know, using this technology to empower people is so important, I feel. So, and you've been doing it since get-go. So.
Right. Unfortunately, there's still fear. It's been amplified, the fear media versus the media we're trying to do, which is the even beyond hope. We're empowering people to be their own authority, So
absolutely, like, human potential. But I want to, okay, let's go back to the childhood, because, you know, I watched you for years. Well, when I say for years, I watched you at the beginning and then I got too busy, but you were like in the bio, you were talking about consciousness and, you know, Deepak Chopra, Lynn McCann, all the, you know, Caroline Myss, which is a different message to what you're doing now. And then you seem to disappear off you.
I don't think it's actually a different message. I think
no, that's
UFO thing is an expansion, because that's also about human potential. It's more about us than it is about the others. So who is us? Well, it's not what we've been told. So in order to really make contact or be making contact, like the title says, we have to understand who we are, which is taking all those things people have said about Lynn McTaggart, Joe Dispenza, Deepak Chopra, and bringing it to another level. So it's an extension of the human potential movement because it's beyond human in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if it's beyond human. It's like it says in the bio, it's human potential. It's who we can be when we get out of our limiting thoughts.
But I'm saying beyond human in the sense that the vibration of meeting these others takes us out of the human drama. I guess that's what I mean by human. The drama. This person did that, and where are you going to eat tonight? And did you see that person's shoes? And that whole drama.
And she said that about me, and I think
exactly
this, and let me just gossip and talk about other people.
It keeps us stuck in a really old way of thinking. So yeah, I mean, to go to the higher human elements is what this movement that we're part of is potentiating.
So what happened to you as a child?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I always did feel different. You know, I always felt like I had a nice family, very nice people. You know, they worked hard, they went to school, but I always knew there was something more. I felt there was something more. I didn't know what that was, but it couldn't be just, you know, getting up in the morning, going to work, eating dinner and watching television. I mean, there had to be more to reality and to the real experience than that, because what was this all for then? But most people didn't care. And I was also fascinated with the stars, right? So what are those lights in the sky? This is in my chapter in my book. Why are they out there? What are they telling us? What are those strange patterns that they're in? And why doesn't anyone really talk about their significance? I mean, yeah, people mention stars, but like most people are looking down, and I was always looking up. So I felt I was different from the beginning. And I don't know if you want to call that starseed, hybrid, whatever it was. I would also have strange dreams, out-of-body dreams. I had a high insomnia. I could not fall asleep. I remember being 2 or 3 years old and trying, getting up. I was up all night until I thought if I just closed my eyes and stayed awake and looked straight ahead, at this point, this just came to me, I would do that, and then I would start to see a white light. So I felt like more of my potential opened up with those kind of like 2-year-old meditations, I have to say. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing it. And I don't know, something started to expand, and I got into art, creativity. I had a painting at an art show in 2nd grade. That was like, I was painting abstractly, and I didn't even know what abstractly was. All I knew was I couldn't paint details of things. I would paint my ideas in 2nd grade was to paint the impression of the thing, to let people figure out. So in a way, that was sort of an evolved process of art, because I wasn't like a detailed person to paint this. It was like the man on the trapeze, I think it was. So I knew I couldn't paint all those little details. So I had to just give the impression of it. And that won an award. And it's like, wow. And it was just, I was always interested in the creative process and why we create. This next book I'm writing about is about the creative process and the interface of the UFO phenomena with that. So I'm hoping it's going to be a revolutionary book. We'll have to do a show about that. But anyway, so I was into things, some kids were into, some kids are incredible artists, but I was also very visual. I remember looking at television for the first time. This was when there were black and white televisions, and I was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old. And I remember thinking I wasn't able to see anything on the television except black and white and gray fuzz, like the fuzz. I don't know what everyone around me was looking at. There were no people. I wasn't seeing people. I was just seeing these abstract forms, and everyone seemed to be seeing people. So that was a major point for me of when I realized that the motions on the screen matched the motions of the people here. Even though it was gray, when I put together the patterns of perception, which is sort of what I'm writing about now, I was able to, these forms started to come on to my field of vision. Like it came out of the gray, and I was starting to able to see forms because of the patterns of perception I began to make the associations about. So it's like people emerged out of the gray background in my perceptions of these, training of this perceptions of awareness. I don't know why I'm telling you this, except for the fact that beings exist all around us, but we're not seeing them because we're not trained in patterns of perceptions to notice what's around us. It's like that film, I show it at my workshop sometime, about the gorilla walking through the basketball court. Have you ever seen that? Right. Because of that, I show that to people and they say, what? And they didn't know what they were looking at until they start to make the association. The patterns start to form an awareness that kind of shows us another level of reality. So
yeah,
when we start to notice more around us, and this is the right brain, is the pattern of perception. This is why I also teach remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm teaching people to cognize some new realities in their sense perception, in their sensing, their intuiting, the awareness of the non-local mind. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to explain to people what the guerrilla thing is. So a group of young people, I don't know, about half a dozen, are asked to throw a ball at each other. So they're given a focus. And then a guy in a gorilla suit walks through the middle of them as they're watching the ball and catching the ball. I think they were given...
I tell people to count how many times the team in the white shirts are passing the ball. Just count it. And so people are pretty good people. They do what you tell them to do. And so they're so focused on the count that this guy in a gorilla suit walks across the basketball court and bangs its chest and walks off. I would say 95% of the people do not see that because they are focused on what they were told to do, which is what I'm making the equivalency of. People are focused on this is reality and that's not reality. And so they don't see the bigger picture of what's around them because no one told them it was there. No one said this was existed. So if no one tells you it's true, then you might notice something, but you discount it.
Right. And this comes back to media. You know, we are focused in a narrative, a very tunneled vision, limited narrative. And as we are told to think about this and we're shown vision and we put music behind it, then we don't actually see, as you say, what else is going on. Because do you know what? Whatever the powers that be and whoever you think that is, but this was orchestrated to keep humanity kind of tunneled visioned.
Exactly. This goes along with the whole UFO thing. You know, it's if no one talks about it, it can't be true, because if it was true, people would talk about it. This is like the headline in Scientific America from 1903 that said the Wright brothers are hoaxers for claiming to fly through the air. And they say in that article, if the Wright brothers flew, someone would have reported it. And since no one reported it, it can't be true, because if it was true, someone reported. So it's the same argument for UFOs. If this was real, it would be on the front page of the New York Times. And it's not, although it was on the front page of the New York Times December 16th, 2017. And that was a wake-up call. And now we are snowballing, meaning that a snowball is going downhill, catching steam, the disclosure movement. And that's the reason why this book became so popular, because this is a collection of essays by the best people in the field. This is Linda Moulton Howe, Richard Dolan, my good friend JJ and Desiree Hurtak. So many good people have been involved in this field for 30 and 40 years that it's not like, oh, I think there's something out there, maybe, but no, these are people who know, they've done the research, they've done the investigations, they talk to the insiders, they've talked to experiencers, which probably me and you, Karen, are experiencers, right? So they've talked to lots of experience, and it's not like, people always ask, do you believe in UFOs? This has nothing to do with belief. What is that? Yeah, do you believe in God? Because you don't know. This has to do with, did you see something or did you not see something? Is the government hiding things, or is the government wants us to think it's about belief. That gives them power to hold the secrets, but this is not about belief. This is about, is there or isn't there? And there seems to be overwhelming evidence that there is something out there. I mean, of course, the New York Times just said the government has come forward to say, absolutely, there's something unknown in our skies. Unknown. Not Russian, not Chinese, not advanced weaponry. So that's square one within this movement.
Yeah,
square one is
unknown unless it is known. I saw a photograph on your Facebook page yesterday of you and Kevin Briggs.
Yes, Kevin's a good friend. Yes, he was just at my book event.
Right.
Yes.
And you know, and Kevin's someone that's had ET contact since he was a child. I've had him on the show many times, and I met him right at the beginning of his journey. And I've got him because like you, I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of consciousness and ET experiences. And I've got a couple of favorites, and he is definitely one of them. Like, he is one of the most extraordinary people that I've spoken with because of his experiences. And he's so humble about it and so nonchalant. Yeah. And, you know, and he said that up until a couple of years ago, he was never going to talk about to the public, apart from his wife and his brother. He was never going to tell anybody. And now he's out there telling the world. But, you know, when he looks up, he's like chatting to the mob, you know, his galactic team in his head, and then they fly past in a UFO and like wave and all that sort of stuff. So when he looks up into the sky, it's not unknown. He knows exactly who he's speaking with. And I love
some
that.
people do know because they've opened up their powers of perception to bring in an awareness of other realities. And I think this is what I'm calling on everyone in the world to do by reading this book, by understanding the content of this book, is start to expand what we think is true. That's what New Realities is about, my program for.
I know, it's a fabulous name, New Realities. It's just, it really is the fabulous.
It just came to me. I don't even actually like the title of this book. It just came to me. It's like, I don't know. It just like sums up.
I think you do know.
So I don't know on a personality level. It comes from the unknown, from the subconscious soul, psyche level.
Do you have open and deliberate communication with your guides, with your spiritual team? They're saying yes. They're saying yeah, because I do. And I'm chatting.
I don't look at it as that in that way. I mean, a lot of people do. I get downloads when I'm writing. I think, though, it's a sort of aspect of me. I mean, yeah, sometimes there's communication, but it's like, I'm not like.
Can I tell you what they're saying?
Yes, tell me.
Well, they're saying you are us and we are you. And the relationship is so close that you don't understand the differentiation between me and you, us and you, and that's how it's supposed to be. They're saying that.
Well, I think there is no differentiation.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what they're saying. It's how they're supposed to be. Whereas most people, when they think connecting to galactic entities or spirit guides, we're looking at some separateness clump because we're so rooted in separateness that there's got to be something outside of me that's talking to me. Whereas, you know, the oneness of being that they operate in, it's,
there's nothing outside of us.
Right.
Everything. If it's in your awareness, it's in your field of self, you know, because the awareness is the self. So, yeah, I appreciate that. I didn't know you did that. What did you call it? What do you do with your
well, we're here to talk about you, but yeah, I've been connected to my guides for years, and it's developed over the years. In my 30s, I was doing, you know, courses to develop the psychic ability and expanding my field, and then I started teaching people how to do it. But I call them very irreverently the mob. It's a longer conversation because I'm not really talking to points of consciousness that are rooted in separateness. I'm talking to a stream of consciousness, a bit like the way Esther describes Abraham, like a stream of consciousness, wisdom. It's because they say, you know, we are energy, we are a combination of all that we've lived in through time and space and throughout multi-dimensions. And so you can't really give it an identity, but you can if you want to, if you need to. You can say Archangel Michael, Jesus, Buddha,
I think it's
Metatron.
All good. I think it's all an evolution. So, you know, I'm happy that you're so tuned into this.
But I have to say, you have a huge kind of sort of team, you know, to put it in human terms, you have a huge like mob gang, but energy behind you that is guiding you and speaking through.
I feel that. I feel like, you know, I'm like the tip of the iceberg of really. Well, I feel like, I mean, maybe everyone feels like they're here to do something, but I feel like really focused as a bridge between these ET worlds in particular. I wouldn't even call them ET. You know, after writing this book, Grant Cameron has a chapter in here who's a great guy. He calls me up and goes, you know, they may not even be ETs. That's just something we call them. And he's right. What we're calling ET or whatever that is a label for something we don't know.
Right.
We don't know. We don't know what these beings, we don't even know who we are. So how do we even presume to make a qualification of other beings? We don't even know what a tree is, we don't even know what the simplest thing of, like a blade of grass, what is it? It's like, that's from Walt Whitman's poem, what is leaves of grass? But what is this? We don't know. So we create ideas about what we think things are, and then we believe the ideas and say it's true, which sometimes that works in science, but it won't get you very far in understanding the mysteries. We have to not be attached to our beliefs, because belief doesn't mean anything. Like I said, do you believe in UFOs or do you not? And belief is conjecture.
Yeah.
Do you know? Knowing, gnosis. Do you know the word gnosis?
No, tell me. It's like Gnostic, gnosis?
Yes, Gnostic comes from gnosis. Gnosis means to know beyond reason, beyond conjecture, beyond. Gnosis is knowingness. This is the Greek word knowingness. So we override belief and thinking and guessing, all those things, to know, to gnosis, to knowingness. Knowingness is the key to unlocking the door to human beingness.
And you know what, when I'm teaching people about their psychic abilities, most people are operating in knowing and then looking for some message to come or some image to come, or for the clairvoyance or the clairsentient, and yet they've already got the knowing. And it's hard to explain to them, but you're already doing it because it feels so natural. And you're like that, right? You call it downloads or whatever.
Yeah, that's how I teach remote viewing in that same way. Don't guess, know.
Right.
And sometimes you get this impression, and I practice remote viewing every day. So
what do you remote view?
Well, there's actually an app online called the Remote Viewing Tournament, or RV Tournament, where it's sort of like you compete against other remote viewers who gets the right target. So it's kind of fun. I mean, there's like 3,000 people in this. Anyone can join RV Tournament, and it's really good practice. And I know when I got something, I know when I'm guessing. When I know that I got it, then I get 100%. If I'm sort of vague and maybe not tuned in, it's like, it's reflected in the score that is the judge. So I'm doing pretty well considering there's 3,000 people, but it is like a muscle. Remote viewing is, and I just did a whole lecture on this with JJ and Desiree Hurtak it's about tapping into the right brain, the creative brain, the receptive brain, the receiving part, and you're letting the images come to you. I guess that's like being psychic. It's like when you ask your guide, you're just letting it come to you. So this is part of our evolution as human beings. You know that. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not a thinking process. It's actually just an allowing process. It's asking the question, getting out of the energy of the question, and in that place of receiving, which is just that complete, like meditation teaches us, that complete relaxed, just, give me what when I speak to my mom, I just say, show me, and then I let go. Rather than trying to think about it. It's like the more empty you are, the more you can receive. It's a sort of counterintuitive. But I want to go back to something that you said before. Yeah. Not counterintuitive, that's not the right word, but it's like what we've been, it's the opposite of what we've been, it's intuitive, but it's the opposite of what we've been taught, how we've been taught. We've been taught to think and process and analyze, and it's the opposite of that. But you said something about they're not even, Grant Cameron said they're not even extraterrestrials, we don't know what they are. Because as humans, we identify who we are from our physical, meat suits, and we say, this is me. And I think that the extraterrestrial world, much like the spiritual world, identify themselves as their energy, their consciousness, their spirit, soul, I don't know, give it some names, that is inhabiting or using a meat suit, if you like, a body, a form, to operate in a particular dimension, but they don't identify themselves
with the form. It's just like the car, you're driving a car around.
But it's what we need to do as human beings is also extend the borders of it. We don't end with the body.
Right.
We have an energy field, we have a thought form field, we have a morphogenetic field. So as we redefine who we are as human beings, being more than the meat suit, right, then this is part of making contact. This is part of aligning with the higher consciousnesses, because like you said, they probably don't identify with. There's an energetics, and we are now understanding, because of quantum physics, that we're not just a particle, we're a wave, and we're some combination of wave particle, wavicle, and we been so trained to think we're just a particle that we've forgotten the wave. Right. And when we know we're energy, that thoughts are things or energetic things, then we can start to communicate with these beings on a higher level, because they're not using words.
Right.
They're using symbols. The power, the difference between a sign and a symbol?
No, tell us.
A sign is, this is what it is. You see a stop sign? Mm-hmm. It's not a symbol for stopping, otherwise you wouldn't stop. Does that mean stop or not? No, it's a sign that says stop. But if you take that same sign, and let's say you put it in an ocean of polluted water, it just doesn't mean stop. It's stop what you. It's like, let's stop the whole process. A sign, when it converts to a symbol, takes on an expansion of meaning that is not pinpointed as a specific thing. Signs are specific things. Symbols are expansion. Like if you look at my book, the cover of my book, there's a little asterisk in the middle of making and contact, between the making and the contact. And I didn't force the publisher to put this in, but I said, please put this in, because this asterisk, which is a star, asterisk means star, is the point of contact. This abstract, all these words in this book comes down to that asterisk, that symbol of making contact. It is, because what is an asterisk? It could be a little sign, it could be reaching out in many directions. If you look at an asterisk, it has a multiplicity of meanings that cannot be narrowed down to just a sign. And when you take in the multiplicity of meaning, that's the point of making contact. Mm-hmm. The point, it's a little pun, the point of making contact, and the point of making contact is the poetic value that little symbol has in each person's understanding. Yeah. What's the point of making contact? Well, what is the point of making contact? It's to understand the symbolic nature of reality, which we're all a part of, that we can interchange and interface with higher levels being in order to communicate a higher value of knowledge. That's what the point of symbolic thinking is. So,
I think it's to know who we are as, as you've said, as human potential, because they know, they're living it. Because I used to talk to the masters and people were channeling galactic beings, and I used to be critical when I was younger and say, if you can go straight to God, why would you channel a galactic being? And this is my critical mind. And then my guides sort of hit me on the head as usual, because they normally do, tell me off when I'm in the critical mind. And they say, well, think about it, Karen. These beings are consciousness incarnated into a form that are living a completely different reality to how humans are living, a much broader perspective of spiritual understanding in a form. Wouldn't you want to hear from someone that's actually living it, their experiences, how they do it? And I thought, oh yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad you had that revelation, because we're here to unfold a greater reality and meet these beings beyond just the ordinary, beyond the ordinary.
It's so exciting. So before you leave this earthly realm, do you see yourself communicating with physical extraterrestrials, like hanging out and, you know, having
So
telepathic.
see, you, me, you, us, we're already doing that.
I know that because I do it all the time, but not like someone like Kevin Briggs. Like, I haven't had an experience where okay. So perception, they're saying perception. So
Well,
he's perceiving like, if you stood before me in the physical, I would perceive you as reality. And they're saying reality is just a perspective of perception.
That's right.
So, yeah.
No, but the dream state, you see, in this book, I talk about we have to become more lucid in altered states of awareness. So in your dream states, I mean, in my dream states, I had lots of dreams with other beings from other realms.
Yeah.
And some of it's beyond the human capacity to comprehend.
Right.
But in a dream, which is not a dream, because some of these dreams you don't forget. Most dreams you forget. You wake up and it's like, you know, footprints on the sand, they kind of just dissolve. But some dreams, like I had this dream of being given a little creature to hold in my hand, a little hybrid creature. And it's like, this is weird. But, you know, I never forgot that dream. So was it a dream or was it an altered reality? And that is where my belief, this is my belief, that these beings want us to interface with in these alternate realities, because they're not going to show up like you here or me here too, because they're not of this vibratory realm. And if they were to show up, you would shift out of ordinary consciousness. You would shift. You would not be able to even maintain the Karen Swain identity because, you know, Karen, that's not who you are, right? So if they show up in physical form, it distorts our reality. It is like the world turns on its side, and humans.
Do you think that's why people, when they do encounter physical ETs that have been called abductions, do you think that's why they go into terror? Because I spoke with Sherry Wild years ago. Yeah. And I just loved her story, because every time her guide Dar came to pick her up, and he was in a sort of tall grey outfit, physical form, she would go into absolute terror. And he said, "You do this every time."
I think that is, I think human beings, like back to the gorilla, you know, if there was an ET walking through the room or something and we weren't trained to see it, and then suddenly we see it, we go into terror because, and this is what I say in this book, there's nothing more solid than our belief in reality. So that's one part of it. Because so like, you know, you're sleeping in the middle of the night, the doors are locked, suddenly someone's standing at your bed. It's like, how is that's not supposed to happen, whether they're good or bad. But the other level of this, and this is something I've come up with, if you're coming from a different star system, the calibration of your consciousness is at a certain rate, and beings from another, that's why we can be friends with animals and maybe other beings on our solar system, but a being that's calibrated at a different frequency according to their sun's vibration, as it interfaces with our field, distorts our field, distorts it, because that's what I'm saying. We need to be more lucid and more aware in the dream state, so we can withstand the distortion of fields. And people say, oh yeah, what about drugs and all that? This is far more extreme, because whatever drug you're doing, there's still a sense of identity, I guess. But in this interface, and actually Darryl Anka writes a chapter in this book where he's meeting Bashar in a dream state, and he's felt like as if his whole identity was about to dissolve because he wasn't vibrating at a frequency beyond the human identity. That's a frequency, that's a morphogenetic frequency field. And we have to upgrade the frequency quality to who we are in order to withstand real face-to-face contact. So this book is a primer, but vibrationally is what is being asked of us to rise to the bigger occasion. So you're starting by tuning into your guide, but what were we going to ask me there?
Oh, I'm just getting so much information as you're talking. This is why you spent, I don't know, 20 years talking about consciousness and health and healing and energy. It's like priming people to shift their frequency, to shift their field, so that we can acclimate more to interdimensional being who is at a different vibratory experience. But when you were talking about if an ET comes as a physical into your field, it shifts your field. They're saying it influences it. And there's what they showed me, is so what's happening on planet Earth at the moment is that we're being bombarded with a lot of light. And as you turn up the light in a dirty house, you get to see all the dirt or all the distortion to the light. You know, when you're in a dim place, you can sort of ignore the distortion. Dim sort of, I'm sort of talking in an analogy.
Yeah, I get it.
And so what they're saying is their frequency vibrates at such a higher rate. It's like that light sort of shines onto you and it amplifies everything within you, including your fear. So the terror is amplified as you meet an extraterrestrial being. But if you've dealt with your fears and your terror and your anger and your resentments, then yeah, if you're a walking master on Earth, you meet an ET, you're like, "G'day, mate, how you going? High five." So yeah, so the work
that because you don't want when you say that, "Hey mate, hey," you're taking them down to your level, and they they don't.
What I'm saying is, you're not terrified. You're not like, ah.
Right. But you know, if you're talking to a dog, you don't bark at them. You talk at the language at the higher, more, nothing wrong with, "Hey mate," but you know, they're communicating on many, many levels at once. And that's part of the field influence. So we need to understand the multidimensional aspect of higher consciousness communication. So we can, and we have that capacity as humans. We haven't trained for that, but we do have that. So, but you're right, we are being amplified, and that amplification, we need to train in order to stay lucid and conscious in that greater field.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. So I'm really understanding the way, because you know I had that question at the beginning. You know, when did you sort of stop talking about health and consciousness and start talking about ETs? And you said, well, it's all one story, and it really is. It really is. As we learn to expand our psychic ability and learn energy healing and who we are as consciousness beings, it is all one story. Then we move into the making contact story, because we have to do that before. It is the primer. Yeah.
We've made contact. It's not like a new story. The awareness of it is new. Yeah. But we've been, you know, the great mystics have been making contact for ages, you know. They were, you know, I think even Jesus said what is here is everywhere, you know. It's like on all levels, right? And they're saying there are there's many mansions in something like that, many rooms in my mansion or something like that. Something like that. You know, there's some level of consciousness that are making contact with us all the time. Look at you and your team there. You know, they're always talking to you. It's not a surprise. That's like, so you're more online than most people, but you know, everyone can be there.
Oh, everyone can. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is what I talk about. You know, my passion is to take the woo-woo out of woo-woo and make it mainstream. You know, there's a movie called Hereafter made by Steven Spielberg, which I watched the other night, which is about a reluctant Matt, or whatever his name is, actor. He's a reluctant psychic, and he has this experience of feeling very isolated because of his psychic abilities. And, you know, if it's presented to the mainstream world, okay, it might be waking people up, but it makes me angry because we're all psychic. And to think that someone has a special gift or that they're better or different to you
we're all like that, and we're all communicating telepathically with our parents when we're babies, and parents.
But we're dumbed down. The Matrix has made us into little boxes, and this is your box, and that's your name. This is what you're here to do. And so making contact is making contact with your greater self. It's making contact with the real self. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Are people ready for this, Karen?
Yeah, absolutely. You've seen this, Alan. You've been doing this for as long as I have. Some people are ready for it, but I'm also seen an exponential growth in.
I have, but I'm also like seeing, like maybe parts of my family that no matter what, they will hold on to what they know and reject what they don't know. I mean, but yes, you're right. There has been a huge expansion. I just met someone the other night at a book signing, goes, I just woke up last year and I couldn't find anybody. And I'm this fireman and nothing wrong with that, of course, because we need these people. But he said there was no one he could talk to about any of this stuff. And then he found this group and, maybe he'll meet more firemen that you can talk to about this stuff. I'm sure they're out there. But, it's, there's this earth grounded stuff as this is all there is. And then, there's people that enjoy that. And then there's people saying, no, this is not all there is. So.
Yeah.
What level we want to function in our reality? What's the most fun? What's our highest excitement, as Bashar would say?
Yeah, I think the awakening has been exponential, especially in the last couple of years. I think that what we're going through is humanity's mass awakening. The teachers have woken up and they've been doing their work like you and I. And then now it's like, okay, the teachers have sort of been set in place, the star seeds, the light workers, whatever you want to call them. They've been put in place, and now let's awaken the masses. And we've just started awakening the masses, just starting to awaken the masses.
Well, yeah, the Aquarian age is the age of awakening. So
but let's get into the book. Let's talk about, you sent me the book, and because I was sick, I did have an intention to go away and read the book and relax and do some reading, but that didn't happen because I got sick. So I read the first couple of pages. What are some of your favorite stories in the book?
Well, let me just tell you, these are 11 different people, including myself, talking about the range of experience in making contact. So I start from the external, start with the nuts and bolts, start with the nuts and bolts and the government cover-up, like disclosure. That's Nick Pope, who worked for the Ministry of Defense in the UK. And that's all he's really concerned about, is why governments keep secrets, the hardware. And that's where most people in the UFO field, or used to be, there's a shift now, start. Oh yeah, there's something in the sky. That's where people, you see something. And then in the book, I go into a deeper level. I go into the next level, like Grant Cameron, chapter 2, he says, why do UFOs have lights? You think they need lights to travel halfway across the universe? Maybe they're just having lights for us, and I thought that was good. I don't agree with everything everyone says in a book, but, that was another level. And then JJ and Desiree Hurtak go into the higher realms of consciousness as we interface with these beings. And then Linda Moulton Howe talks about her years of experience, 40 years of research, talking to government insiders. And one of my favorite parts is where she talks about how there are 3 groups of competing ETs fighting for control of this planet. I don't know if that's true. It's not my experience, but it's something she heard from a government insider, Department of Intelligence agency, that there's the grays, the reptilians, and the tall blondes, or Nordics. And they're all really controlling the information behind the scenes. And then from Linda, one of my favorite chapters is John Mack. You know who John Mack is? Well, I called his archivist, and there was an audio talk that he had given in 1995. that I said I would love to transcribe this and put it in my books. Anyway, it happened to have been transcribed, and I got permission from his son and this archivist to include that in this book. And John says, and he was someone I knew. It wasn't just someone. I mean, I know all the people in this book. They are all friends.
Darling, you know everybody.
I know you.
You are the ultimate connector. You are amazing.
Well,
anyway, go on.
There's more people I'd like to meet, but yes. So anyway, I knew John, but in this talk he says, it really comes down to worldviews. It comes down to what is your worldview. And if two people have two different worldviews, they're going to see a different reality. They are not going to see you. They're not going to hear the guides that you got knocking on their door saying, hello, wake up, because it's not real for them. Even if they do see a glimpse of the gorilla, they're going to discount it because no one told them the gorilla existed.
Right.
This is what I tell people. So if no one tells you this item is on the map, when you pass it, you're not going to notice it unless you're more lucid and say, and this is what anomalies, according to actually John Mack's teacher, Thomas Kuhn. You know Thomas Kuhn? He wrote the Theories of Scientific Revolution. He says revolutions in science happen when you start to include anomalies. So in the 1800s, someone said that, there's these rocks that fall from the sky. And everybody thought that was just insane. How could there be rocks falling from the sky, until they saw rocks falling from the sky and meteorites? And when you include an anomaly into an existing theory, the theory has to change. Right. So the anomalies now is that, well, there seems to be unidentified craft in our sky. And that is actually undisputed by the US government and probably lots of governments around the world. Who they are, what they are, where they're from, that's up for them. What
kind of drives me a little crazy is that, like going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, how we've been programmed by media. It's like we won't believe something until the government says it's true, or it's on the mainstream news. It's like, when I say we, obviously not the people.
Isn't that what we're going through now?
Humanity, right.
In the whole COVID emergency, it seems like we're in training for what's your experience, what's your reality. Who is an authority here? Well, no one's an authority on the UFO phenomenon. There is no authority. This is why the government can't tell us what's going on, because they don't know what's going on. Nobody knows they have a little piece. It's like the elephant, piece of the elephant. They say
the majority of the government we see as government don't know what's going on, but there is a vast secret government.
There is a secret
undisclosed government that knows what's going on. Yeah, right.
But even that part of the government doesn't really know all of what's going on, because they're only able to see what their belief system can see. More experiencers know what's going on than the government insiders.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and that's levels and levels of experiencers. So you get maybe an experience that said, I think something happened, or I was abducted, and you get beyond the abduction saying, wow, I had an incredible contact where my whole body was illuminated by light. So where are you? Are you being abducted? Are you being contacted? It depends how you approach this, where you're coming from. So, and of course, everyone believes their truth to be the truth. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. So you talk to contactees and say, oh yeah, it's this. And you talk to someone else and say, no, it's not that at all. So this is giving us truth. I have a black cat too.
Every good witch has a black cat, darling.
My cat's name is Gabriel. What's your cat's name?
Oh, he's got a couple of names, but Drake was one of the names. Drake, Marley, I just call him LP, Little Bush.
But I just want to get back to my book for a second, because
go back.
as I go deeper and deeper into consciousness, I go deeper and deeper into the psyche. So it comes back. So we start with the external, we go deep into the internal until we talk to people like Whitley Strieber, who talks about his contact experience in terms of consciousness and how his consciousness has shifted because of this contact experience. So, and I talked to Marie Rodwell, one of your people over there, who says, yeah, there's children being contacted, and there's more to the story, and Carol and Cory. Anyway, so we go from the exo to the esoteric aspects of this, and that's how the structure. So I bring the reader in deeper. It's like, the lobster in the hot or boiling water, and then they're at the end of the book, and they just, slowly incubated in a whole new level of understanding what's possible. So I'm very happy about that.
You wrote the book for the emerging, awakening person asking question, is there a life in the cosmos? It's not really for people that have been exploring consciousness for years.
No, it's not for people who've been on this, because it's a primer for, so that's why I wanted to make it more mainstream, and I needed to make it more than one idea. I needed a diversity of opinions in order for the reader to decide, well, is this true? Is this true? So yeah, it's not for people who've been around the field for a long time, although they may find some gems in there, and JJ and Desiree's chapter, or Linda Moulton Howe's, or Darryl talks about his personal experience, 30-year relationship with the extraterrestrial. So there are some gems in there, but I wanted to bring people up to date in a field that, me and you, Karen, have been swimming in for like 30 years, right? We've been in this. So, nothing really surprises us, right?
Well, I have to say, and I'm sure that you experienced this too. I thought when I went on media, I thought I knew a couple of things, right? I had been teaching and being a psychic and for years. But meeting all these people, it's so exciting. I keep saying I'm going to stop doing it and focus on my own work, and I never do.
Well,
because I just love people and hearing their stories. But you meet some of the people, like you would have experienced this too, Alan, over the years, that have stories and experiences that blow your mind and just explode your own worldview.
Right.
That happened to me with Garnet Schulhauser. Have you ever had Garnet?
Who?
Garnet Schulhauser. I talk about him all the time. Well, he's like Kevin. He's about the same age. He's a little less animated than Kevin.
Send him to me. Send that name.
He was a corporate lawyer for 36 years and very straight-laced Catholic corporate lawyer. And he's loosened up over the years and tells the jokes now, but he was always so sort of like Germanic. He has Austrian background and so straight and, but his experiences blew me out of the water because his spirit guide takes him out in his astral form and flies him around the cosmos, takes him to different planets, takes him to speak to points of consciousness like fairies and angels and mermaids and Sasquatches and Mother Gaia, and like he's got 5 books. And so when I started reading his books, I'm just like,
what's his name, you think?
Garnet Schulhauser. I'll introduce you to him. Yeah.
Garnet. Yeah, let me introduce, because I'm always looking for, I'm like a talent scout, always looking for the latest.
I know. I can introduce you to lots of people, but but you would have experienced that over the years too, when you met people with extraordinary.
Yes, when I first met Bruce Lipton, I sought him out before he was published. It's like, this guy has something to say, and it's like, oh my God. He talked about the synergy of awareness. Well, what is that? Anyway, that's the whole thing, an interview I did with him about, how all the cells in your body come together, form your consciousness. And I actually include that at the end of the book in the epilogue, because he says, we are not humans until we create the being humanity. That's when we all realize we're part of this bigger.
Say that again. We are not humans until we
create humanity.
Oh,
humanity is our collective consciousness.
Humanity is our collective consciousness. Absolutely.
It's the synergy of awareness. Like your cells, they're all independent, but they form the consciousness that makes you singular and focused. But all those cells are conscious in their own way. But how do they come together? And this is a mystery. I don't think even Bruce understands. And how do they all come together to create a singular consciousness like you? They don't understand it, I don't think, because it's in the field, it's in the morphogenetic field. So we as individual cells are coming together to create this greater being, but we still think we're separate. When we realize that we're not separate, then we'll create the synergy of awareness that will create the being that we're really all a part of to begin with.
Yeah, oh, that's beautiful. Oh, I'm getting so many aha moments. Humanity, collective consciousness is a living being. You know, it's so interesting. Yes. That's exactly how my guides, in the Law of One material, they call it, oh, now I've forgotten the name, you know, Ra, who speak, you know, the Law of One material, Ra, who speaks through the channel, says that he's not a being, he's a collective consciousness. What does he call it? A collective memory complex. There's a name. But yeah, it's this knowledge, the collective consciousness becomes this entity into itself. Yeah.
I should go in about 10 minutes though.
Okay, all right, we've got to go. What else do you want to tell people, dying, about your experiences and the book? And
well, I want to tell people that something is shifting in human consciousness. This book, our conversations, everything. We're getting ready. We're at the threshold of something new and unknown, and we are becoming a new species. We are awakening, not just in the whole New Age spiritual thing, we're awakening to the unknown, to a potential that isn't written in books. It's a wave of creative thought form realities that are going to move us into something we have yet to imagine. We just have to be ready for that. So it's like, stop holding on to who you've been so you become who you really are. And that's the challenge of this time. You know, that's the challenge of the last 2 years. It's a challenge of our moment of choice, moment of evolution, our moment of waking up collectively. A lot of us, of course, have had this awakening and all this, but how do we form the synergy of awareness, which is Bruce Lipton's term, to become something we have yet to imagine, we have yet to cognize?
Stop.
Now I make a, what's that?
Stop holding on to who you have been so you can become, what did you say?
Who you are, who you truly are. You know, but we have to, I make a distinction in the book between cognition and recognition. You know what the difference is? Recognition means to recognize, but cognition is the initial point of learning, of making sense of the world, going back to that story from the beginning and making patterns, seeing patterns of perception. I couldn't recognize the forms on the black and white TV because I didn't cognize the forms there. So as we move into these new realities, we have to stay open to the cognitive awareness of new thought form realities, of new thought forms, new ideas. Like most new ideas are rejected because it doesn't fit into the box.
Paradigm.
Right? So I say, stay open to the new ideas where there's no box to put them in. Mm-hmm. We need to create new boxes, and not even boxes, but in order to put something in our world, we need to name it, label it. But if we can stay in the unformed, in the uncertain, in the apprehension of reality, as opposed to comprehension, then we don't collapse the wave function and we start to function like the ETs. We start to think like they think. We don't lose our human access, but we become more right brain. Left brain says, oh, I know what this is. It's this, this, and this. The right brain, which has been dumbed down and overshadowed since we begin to learn semantic reality. Everything has a name, and if it doesn't have a name, it doesn't exist, and all that.
Right.
That's semantic reality. But the more we can let go of naming and identifying things and be more fluid, then the world becomes a wave more than a particle, and we start to meet beings that are less solid and less nameable and more fluid within the fluid motion of who we are as consciousness, because consciousness is not static. It's moving every minute. If it was static, everything would stop and we'd be frozen and just, but because no matter what form you're in, the conscious wave of eternity and the flow of the infinite is moving into us as we welcome it into the greater mind, then everything changes into a wave and we start to swim out into the ocean to meet the beings that are waving at us. So
what you're talking about, waving at us, what you're talking about is the physics of their reality.
Yes.
They understand the waveform. That's why they can dematerialize their particles, walk through a wall.
Right. They understand quantum physics, not as theory, but as practical.
Right.
But we are still functioning. You know what we're functioning on? Physics invented by Newton, that's 400 years old. That's what's running our cars and airplanes and trains and machines, energy in, energy out. But maybe, and like some people have said inside the government, there's another physics. I mean, quantum physics have said this, but we have yet to apply a practical application because it has to do with consciousness. So we have to shift to the fifth gear, fifth dimension, in order to make applicable the quantum physics into a mechanism that we could use in an everyday world to up-level the realities and the forms and the conditions we are in, but it also means changing the way we think about reality. So
absolutely, the application of impossible things.
Exactly.
Have you interviewed her? The application of impossible
who
things.
is that?
I'll introduce you to her. You might have put her on.
No, she sounds great. I've heard that, but
it's the name of her book.
Yes, I want to interview her. Yes. She's
a dear friend, and she's amazing. The application.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just before we go, I've got one more question.
Yes,
How do you think the ET consciousness or the extra dimensional consciousness is involved in what we're currently going through? Like what we've been going through in the last couple of years. How do you think they're dovetailing?
I don't think it's directly involved, but I think it is a passageway for us to let go of what we call normal.
Right.
And everyone gets that now. Everyone gets there is no normal. There's no going back to normal in a way there never was a normal. It makes makes it easier to meet the unknown because look at what we've had to do for 2 years, and everyone is on the planet has had to do some sort of turnaround in their life, and that's training. It's like working out. You work out, become strong, and then suddenly you need those muscles to lift package or furniture, but we are in the workout phase. We've been working, consciousness has been working out, and I think also upgrading our nervous system. So I think it's indirectly related. Maybe it's directly related, but I get the sense that we are moving and we're all collective. There's no borders anymore, right? If a little thing can get everywhere in the planet, then what's the point of putting up a wall or a fence or saying this is a country? This is part of the synergy of awareness that we need in order to meet the others, because obviously there is only one planet. I don't mean one world government. I mean one humanity, one planet, one consciousness. Consciousness is only singular. Really, when it comes down, your conscious, my conscious, we are consciousness. So we are yet to come out of this and realize I think the benefits of this time, but it's the it's the shift. If you ever drive a stick shift car, the clutch goes down, you have to move it to the next gear. This is where we're going. We're going from 3D to 5D. Means that we start to live multidimensionally. ETs become part of our reality. We have unity consciousness. Everyone can live in abundance. I know this is ideal, and who knows, but it is possible. It is possible to live in a much better world where everyone can have food and education and water and
we move from survival to creativity. So at the moment, the majority of the human race, not everyone, are in that survival mode where they do a job to pay the bills, to have the house, to have the car, to have the holiday, rather than having the freedom to just be creative and do whatever.
Imagine if everyone lived that. Imagine what the planet would look like, how joyful and active and full of life and love and potential if we were all that creative imagination. That's my vision, exactly.
I have imagined that so many times. Like I keep talking to the mob, like, what does it look like? What does it look like?
I call that the flowering of humanity.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Natalie Sudman was the name of the application of Impossible Things. Have you had her on your show? Natalie Sudman. Natalie,
I'd like to meet her. Yeah.
I'll introduce you. Darling, it's been such a joy, honestly, such a joy to speak with you today. You are amazing. And just tuning into your mob, I've never experienced anything quite like what I felt with you. Seriously, it is.
Say hello to my mob for me.
Well,
okay?
It's just the quality of energy that is behind you and your work. And what I want to say to you is that they so applaud you. Like you don't need the applause, you don't need the accolades, but they just.
No, I appreciate it. It's nice to be
honor you is a better word. They so honor you for everything you're doing and everything you've done and how you have brought in a new reality and shifted people and helped people awaken. There's just huge pouring out of this honor for you, really.
Well, there's more to come.
There's a lot more to come. I know you're getting more prolific.
It's just the beginning. It really is. So hold on to your seats. Thank you so much. Let me know when you post this, and I'll send it out to my people too. And thank you for all that you do. Say hello to your mob. From my mob to your mob, we say hello. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Oh, what a blessing and an honor to have a chat with Alan. He had to head off because he's got something else going on, but an amazing human being, honestly. And what I've found is, as I've been speaking with people over the years, not necessarily, but the ones that are behind the others are usually, the masters. No, I can't say that. Because he's been showcasing people instead of just sort of talking about himself and what he's got to say. Not that that's not great, because I put people on the show that do that all the time. But the feeling I got with the amount of help, guidance is just huge. I know I said it a million times, but I've never felt such a big energy. Like, just amazing. Alan is doing amazing work. And over the last year or so, he has been really prolific, uploading a lot of stuff to his YouTube channel, New Realities. Go and check it out. And he's been working with Sheila Seppi and the Wish Alliance, as I have been, and Portal to Ascension with Neil. I've forgotten Neil's last name. Sorry, I'm not firing at 100%. It's still, at the moment, I'm still sort of getting back online. I'll get there. But amazing human being. And I was thinking about his book, if you're, it would be a great read for everybody, but maybe if you're someone that has family or friends that are just starting to ask these questions, like, is there life out there in the cosmos? Maybe the book would be great to give to them, to the inquiring mind, not to the skeptical mind that says, nah, aliens are all BS and there's no such thing as life after death and, all that. You're not going to convince them, because, minds can be like concrete, can't they? They can be like walls that you can't penetrate. I was having a conversation with a girlfriend's mother yesterday, And she is a curious person. She's in her 80s. She's fabulous. I love her to bits. But she has her ideas and they come from the mainstream media. And she's adamant in those ideas that what the news is telling her is how the world works. And so she keeps asking me questions, but I know that if I answer her questions, she'll just argue with me because it just can't penetrate her worldview. So I kept saying, I'm not going to answer that question because it's not something that you would understand or you would even believe me. And she keeps pressing me. We have these conversations all the time. It's hilarious about spirituality and all sorts of things. She's she's a beautiful woman, honestly. But when we start to believe something and we become right about it, we can't penetrate that concrete wall, that brick wall. So yeah, just like Alan said, stay open. You know, a parachute only works when it's open. Keep your mind open. Keep your mind open. I know when I started having a lot of extraterrestrial ET conversations on the show, I had a few comments, only a few, from people going, oh, now you've gone nuts, now you've gone bonkers. They'd love to talk about consciousness and health and spirituality and the masters and channeling and psychic ability and life after death and NDEs. I love to talk about all that stuff. But once you start to introduce the ET conversation, then people hit that brick wall of limitation in their belief system and say, no, this stuff, I can't come at this stuff. But I've seen over the last year, actually, even people in my group, their minds open like a parachute and start to contact their galactic perspective and start to channel light language and get sort of into that perspective. It's all really one perspective. The ascended masters, the angels, the ETs, the human races, the animals, the earths, the cosmos, the planets. It's all one expanding, evolving, spinning consciousness. It's one, as the gurus have always said, we are one. We are one with the infinite intelligence of the cosmos, just experiencing life in different perspectives. Wonderful conversation with Alan. Make sure you check out what he's doing on his YouTube channel. And thanks again for listening and watching. And if you have any questions, Alan and I were going to go live today, and he said, no, let's do a pre-record, because I thought I could ask you questions. We'll do a live another time where you can quiz him and ask him questions, and quiz me if you like, about all things consciousness and ET intelligence and cosmic consciousness. What do you want to know? Do you want to connect to your own galactic self? Who are you living on another planet in another dimension? We're not only human experiences and galactic experiences, we're also operating as spirit guides. I've spoken to many people on the show. One of them wrote a book, Dr. Leo Galland, called Already Here or Already There, where his dead son starts communicating with him, and he says, you're already here, Dad. You're not dead or alive. You're in both places at once. You're already a spirit here with me, talking to me as you're experiencing a human life. So it's all happening simultaneously. We don't live, then go to the spirit world. We're already there in the spirit world, projecting an aspect of our consciousness into this reality and witnessing it. So our dead relatives are with us in the spirit world. We're already there. That's what I loved about his book. Yes, so we're here and there and everywhere. We are multi-dimensional beings, as I discussed with Geraldine in the last conversation. Multi-dimensional. And what part of your multi-dimensional aspect do you want to connect with, communicate with, access, be a part of where you are as a human mind and potential? What do you want? There is infinite possibility. I was thinking as I was talking to Alan, I might change the name of the show to Infinite Possibility. Life is a journey of infinite possibility. Thanks again for listening and watching. And remember, I've changed the way we do the Inner Sanctum this year. I still have my weekly online groups with my tribe who have subscribed. But what I'm doing with the guest teachers is I'm doing them, inviting you, the public, or anybody who wants to come into the Zoom room and meet the guests. And then I'm live streaming them so you can ask them questions so that they get a broader reach, a broader group of people listening to their wisdom, rather than just my little group and then me editing it and putting up the highlights. So the whole conversation will be on my platforms. And if you want to join that, just sign up on my website, Karen Swain /Inner Sanctum. And I'll send you the Zoom link and you can come online and meet whoever I've got next. You know who I've got coming up? One of my favorites. Stephen Simon is coming up in February, mid-February. It's on the weekend, Saturday afternoons in the States and a Sunday morning in Australia or in Asia and Australasia. It's Saturday night in Europe. You know, he's been a producer, prolific producer, filmmaker, film director, making movies and predominantly consciousness music for years, movies for years. And his beautiful young wife, she was like only 54, died about 3.5 years ago. And he's a bit older than her. He's in his 70s now. And they spoke about life after death, often both very awakened people. And she was channeling and helping people, and beautiful soul, still beautiful soul. And after a lot of grief, he started communicating with her, and together they wrote his book, What Dreams Have Come, you know, coined after one of his movies, What Dreams Would Come. Oh dear, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm still not firing. But anyway, Stephen's coming to chat to us. So if you want to meet Stephen, he's such a beautiful soul. Just love him. Sign up at the Inner Sanctum. As I say, it's free or by donation. I do ask for donations if you want to contribute to these shows and conversations. And you can come in and meet him on Zoom next month in February. And we'll also live stream that conversation on my YouTube channel. So I really look forward to that conversation. I had a chat with Stephen on the show at the beginning of last year, I think it was, or the middle of last year, whenever it was. And then I put him on about a dozen other shows. I put him on Sandra Champlain's show, Jeff Mara's show, all the shows that he's been on. I introduced him to all the podcasts because he, you know what I felt? I felt like I needed to get him out of his grief, because he was still really grieving, even though he was in complete communication contact with his, supposedly, you know, when I say dead, the dead never say they're dead, with his wife that had left her physical body. He was still very grieving her physical presence. And I thought, I'll just get him really busy talking about his book, and that'll give him something to do and get him out of his grief. Because, you know, when we're contributing to others and helping others, we don't have time to be in our pity party, right? We don't have time to feel sorry about ourselves. Poor me, my love has died, because we're too excited about reaching out and helping others. That's the joy of life. That is the joy of life. That's what overcomes all depression, is to reach out, extend your energy outside your own drama to contribute to others. So that's what I did with the beautiful Stephen. Anyway, so he's coming in. Lots of love to you, and starting to take clients again in the next couple of weeks, because I cancelled all my clients. So if you're wanting a reading or a session, contact me on my website and I'll book you in. Big love to all of you. It's wonderful to be back and speaking to you again. And check out my book, Awakened by Death, if you haven't already. Big love. Bye for now.